The whole of psychology, I reckon, could be condensed to a single one of Wei Wu Wei's aphorisms, if that's what they're called. I think that's what you'd call them. So you could quite easily condense the whole of psychology into this one line, which is where Wei Wu Wei asks, "What's your problem?" and then answers, "Mistaken identity." Now, this doesn't mean mistaken identity in the sense that I think I'm one identity, but really I'm another. So it's not that I think I'm Peter, but actually I'm Paul. Oh God, I thought I was Peter, but I'm Paul. Or I thought I was Paul, but I was Peter. Because that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter whether my identity is whatever the hell it is. It could be Sarah, it could be Margaret, it could be Peter, it could be Paul, it could be Joe, it could be Gary, it doesn't matter. All of those are mistaken identities. Whatever it is, I think I am, that's a mistaken identity. So, suppose we don't grasp this aphorism of Wei Wu Wei's. Suppose I think, yeah, I am Reginald, or I am James, or I am whoever. Or, more correctly, I am some kind of ego identity that can be designated in this kind of a way. Then anything I try to say, psychologically, or if I try to build a psychology in that, it's all completely meaningless because I'm building a psychology on who I'm not. So no matter how much work I put into it, no matter how many volumes no matter how huge the body of work, the discipline becomes, if it's all based on who I'm not, it's all very well, but obviously it's totally pointless and irrelevant. And that is exactly what we do. That's exactly what we have done in the West, in a kind of remarkably, and it's kind of embarrassing for us because the whole idea of being, some kind of academic means you're looking at things rigorously. So it's absurd that we would make such a ludicrously obvious, maybe a mistake isn't the right word, but we would just start off without ever questioning where we're starting off from, which is the same place every gobshite starts off from, the perception that, oh yeah, I am who I am told I am who you say I am what I think I am, and then proceed from there. So that's what we all do, every single last one of us. And of course, it's natural. But then if we're going to make some kind of claim that we're actually being rigorous, then we don't do that. We stop and we question, we stop and we think about it. Know yourself, as was inscribed above the temple of Apollo thousands and thousands of years ago. So fair play to the ancient Greeks. There are streets ahead of us, even if they were ancient Greeks. And we tend to think ancient Greeks, well, they're ancient, therefore they're pretty stupid. But hang on, suppose, just suppose, it works the other way. And we've been getting stupider ever since. Which is a good title for a book, Stupider Ever Since. Just like that film, Idiocracy, where your man gets cryogenically frozen. And he is a bit stupid, but when he re-emerges, when he gets thawed out a couple hundred years later, he is a frickin' genius. He's the smartest man on the planet because of this thing about getting stupider all the time. So mistaken identity, it's not really the wrong identity. It's really the way that we conceive of ourselves or perceive ourselves or experience ourselves as well is different in kind. It's a different type of thing from what's actually true. It's a totally different, it's qualitatively different, it's a completely different thing. And one way that we can try and explain that a little bit is to say that all the activity of thought it takes place within the realm of abstractions, the abstract realm. So naturally, our understanding of ourselves is also going to be part of this abstract realm. So we can explain what abstract means very, very simply. It's a good approach is to talk about how we see things, the visual field, how we make sense of our visual input. Now, there's part of our brain that operates so as to process the raw visual input to kind of enable us to see things separately so it doesn't all run together. And that's important, because if it all runs together, it's hard to make out particular things, and it's hard to function in a purposeful kind of a way. And if you ever took a large dose of mushrooms or some whatever psychedelic, you'd be well aware of what it feels like when all our perceptions aren't neatly boxed and put in boxes and trays, and well, this is this and this is that, and everything's organized in that way. It's just a river, a torrent of interlocking patterns. Everything interacts and interweaves with everything else, which is amazing to look at, but overwhelming from the point of view of the purposeful self. There exist computer programs for enhancing poor photographs, and I suppose it might be true to say that the way they work is essentially just by treating everything like a child would draw a picture of someone and draw a big, strong black line around it just to show here's the figure, to highlight the figure. This is the figure, and that is what the computer program we do. We kind of draw lines around everything to kind of separate things out, and that helps us makes things stand out. It just resolves the detail a bit better. That's fair enough to say this part of the brain does that anyway. And this is pretty much evidenced by what Jill Bolte Taylor says in her YouTube video. Jill Bolte Taylor is a neuroscientist, and pretty famously she had a stroke when she was working in the lab late one night, and I think it made the left side of her brain go offline. The part of her brain that draws lines around things and separates things and analyzes things and categorizes things was offline for a while, which I imagine, and I think she says as much, was unusual for her, because she would be predominantly an analytic type, so she would be not really using the other part of the brain which synthesizes things, puts them together, and isn't about words and concepts and categorizations. So anyway, much to her amazement, as she relates, she perceives how everything is connected, so she would perceive all the connections between everything rather than seeing the separateness between different things. So really she was seeing truer, because that separateness is, as I say, it's an overlay by part of the brain. Separateness is an overlay. So in reality, there is connections between everything and every other thing, which means that there aren't any things really. So when we say, well, there are things and there are separations and there are boundaries between them, that's the realm of abstraction. And that's fair enough, because that is kind of necessary. Well, it's more than kind of necessary, it's necessary. That doesn't mean it's real, though. It's a convention, as Alan Watts says. So let's put things in the right order. Reality itself is not based on boundaries. does not contain boundaries. We have to insert them ourselves. So then, if we are prepared to go along with that and accept that, we would also have to accept that the feeling that we have of who we are, which is very, very much influenced by thought, which is the analytic side, is an abstraction, just like everything else we experience through thought is an abstraction. So just suppose that we put that to one side and check out what the world seems like and me in it. When we don't look at it in this abstraction creating way, but we just let it all fall as it falls and let it be what it is, see what that looks like. So then we're in the non-abstract realm. We're in the realm of actual relatedness, where everything is implicit in everything else. So if we do that, if we see the world that way, not in the artificial way, there is a very, very big difference in what we perceive ourselves to be, or what I perceive myself to be. Not just a little difference, not just a difference of degree, a difference of kind. Because I'm not experiencing myself as I am constructed by made-up boundaries, lines that I draw around myself like a child drawing a big black line around a figure. That's how we normally experience ourselves. The ego is something which has a big line drawn around it to separate it from everything else. I don't experience that. I experience something else. I experience the interconnectedness of this thing I was calling me and this other thing or collection of things that I would call the universe. So because I'm just experiencing the interconnections and the relatedness and how one is implicit in the other and interpenetrates the other, as they say in Buddhism. So everything is in everything. And there's nothing which hasn't got a bit of everything in it, which means that there are no things. It's just everything is in every little bit. Every little thing has got the whole of everything in it, which may seem weird, but that's tough. If it seems weird, you just have to get over it because that's the way things are. That's what Richard Feynman says. It's like when you find out stuff that just completely insults and goes against what you expect. Tough. It doesn't matter what you expect. It doesn't matter what you think ought to be the case. Do we really think the universe gives a damn about our wretched preconceptions? Does it hell? So just when we do feel this incredible that can't be right, we just get gobsmacked by it. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that the view we're attached to, the partial or fragmented view we're attached to, is real. It just means we can't let go of it because we're afraid of the bigger picture. Nothing wrong with reality. It's just us. The problem is in us, and us. We like to make everything. We've got a small, petty view of the world. We'd like to believe that everything is as petty as small as we are, or as we like to see. As we like to see things. So that's our problem. So the sense that I have of myself as a thing, and the universe has been a collection of things, a multiplicity of things. As Colin Wilson says, when we see ourselves as, even though it sounds kind of harsh to say it, as just one thing in a world of things, which is how essentially we do see ourselves, because that's how the rational mind works. That disappears, and there is no collection of things which is the universe, and there's no thing which is me. The me thing goes, the universe collection of things goes. There's no things. Everything is in everything. There's no separation and no boundaries. So that's very different from how we regularly experience ourselves to be. It couldn't be more different. And the thing is that, which is an astonishing thing, that how we regularly experience ourselves to be has absolutely no connection with reality. None at all. It's just a part of a narrative we're spinning ourselves in our heads. So this narrative, or this self that gets created in the narrative, can run into problems, can have a hard time, can get caught up in knots, can go through a lot of suffering. There's no limit to how much suffering, an awful lot of suffering. So then our approach in the West is to try and fix things for this limited and essentially unreal, fragmented view of ourselves, so it can get away from the suffering. We want to repair that self that we are in the mind-created narrative. We want to fix it up. And we put a huge amount of effort into this. It's actually an impossible task, because the nature of existing as who we're not is always going to create problems, obviously. The only way it couldn't or wouldn't create problems is if it wasn't the case that who we take ourselves to be isn't at all who we are. So if we were right about, if we weren't suffering from mistaken identity, modern Western psychology would work fine, but it's pointless kind of speculating in that direction, because we aren't who we think we are. So we put so much effort and time and hopes, and we pin everything on being able to fix the self-concept, so we can carry on living this kind of weird life that we have in the abstract realm, where everything is abstract. And that's very unsatisfying, because there's not a lot of meat to abstractions. There's no real flavour in them. We get excited about the thought when we're going to obtain an abstraction that we see as desirable, or an abstract state that we see as desirable. And so we can live off that anticipation, because we're anticipating that we don't know. We're anticipating something real. But we'll never get something real, because you never get anything real in the realm of abstraction. So we can live on our anticipation of something great happening that is never going to happen, and that'll keep us going. And that's pretty much what conditioned existence is. As well as being terrified by the prospect of something really awful happening, which also isn't real. And it isn't real in the sense that what the ego fears, or what the self-concept fears, is frightening and terrible from the point of view of the self-concept. But seeing as we're not that self-concept, and that self-concept doesn't exist, it's all very relative. So when we try to fix the problem, or fix the problem in the self-concept, we are actually agreeing that this problem is very, very serious, and we have to do something about it. We are reaffirming that message. The more seriously we take it, and the more high-powered we get in our attempt to fix the problem, the more we reinforce the mistaken idea that there is a problem. We reify the demons. We reify the very source of the problems. We're just making it more real for us the whole time. But instead of that, this is a kind of radical idea. It's very, very simple, and very, very radical, but also simple. What would help is to expand our awareness of the world, of ourselves, enough just to see, well, hang on. I'm more than what I thought I was. The universe is more than what I thought it was. And so I stop identifying so intensely and humorlessly with this narrow construct. And that transforms everything. That doesn't mean that I still won't be feeling anxious, or that I still won't be depressed, as Anthony de Mello says. Doesn't mean that I won't get depressed, but I'm not identifying. It's not so. There's a bit of lightness, perspective, humor even in it. So I've got two levels of looking at things at the same time. I've got the level of awareness to do with the rationally constructed self-image, which we can't get rid of. That's our default way of seeing things, but we've got an extra viewpoint, which is qualitatively different in kind, which is far more broader. And it is having this broader view of things that helps, because out of that broader view comes a sense of reality, a sense of something real. Out of that broader view comes a well-being and strength or resilience, inner strength or resilience, because we're not just this tiny little fragile, edgy, insecure little ego which needs to bolster itself up the whole time and which requires to go and get all this cognitive therapy, various types of therapy to bolster itself up. Once we see that that isn't who we are, even if it's only just a little bit of a sense, then that means we don't have to take the self-concept and its problems so very seriously. We can let it have its problems, because it's always going to have its problems, so we have to let it have its problems. We aren't going to fix the problems because it is the problem. I am the problem that I'm trying to fix, or my limited understanding or perception or sense of myself is the problem that I'm trying to fix, even though I don't know that that is the problem that I'm trying to fix, because if I did know that that is a problem that I was trying to fix, I'd stop trying to fix it. I'd look at it, I'd start laughing in a kind of a way, or maybe just smile a bit and just like, as you would when you discover that you've been trying very hard to fix a problem that can't be fixed, and the reason it can't be fixed is not a real problem at all. So this shift in consciousness, or expansion of consciousness, as they used to say in the 60s, is the answer to everything. The expansion of consciousness is the answer. Not staying unconscious and trying loads of tricks and gimmicks and methods and this and that. It's as if we're so keen to stay unconscious, we'll try any bullshit, rather than taking the bigger view and expanding our consciousness to see things with more perspective and see what things really are, instead of staying hidden, staying trussed up in the realm of abstractions, which is what we really want to do, even if it causes a lot of suffering. And we look within this realm of abstractions for the solutions, and we'll never find them there, because it's our insistence on living in this realm as if it is actually a real realm. That is the cause of all our problems. Okay, thanks for watching.